what the government wants in terms of holding this referendum, they want to get permission from the country to change the constitution so they can legislate by the end of this year to make it much easier for a woman to obtain an abortion, particularly in the early pregnancy. So all terminations allowed within the first 12 weeks, subject to medical
Correct.
advice, and between 12 and 24 weeks in exceptional circumstances. So the health of the mental or physical health of the mother, or fatal fetal abnormality in the child. Now, currently, women
and that's up to birth, just to be clear.
apologies, abnormalities up to birth. You're quite right. Currently, women pretty much aren't able to get an abortion, even if there is a risk of abnormality, even if they are the victim of rape or of incest, they are pregnant against their will. They have to travel abroad to get an abortion. Now, they don't travel to Northern Ireland because they're the same, very similar rules that apply in Northern Ireland. They do travel to the UK mainland. We know that tens of thousands of women do that every year. 9 women every single day travel to the UK to get abortions and often have to pay many hundreds, even thousands of pounds. Why do you want the law not to change, given that women are already getting abortions, but they're just having to go to great expense and bother and trauma to get them?
Okay, so to be clear, what the Eighth Amendment does, it gives equal rights to the life of the mother. It basically says, with due regard to the equal right to the life of the mother. So let's be very clear, there is absolutely nothing currently in Irish legislation to prevent any treatment being given to a woman if she is sick while she is pregnant. I've heard that really misrepresented time and time again. I actually think this is the most important vote people will ever cast, because it will be actually introducing an abortion culture into Ireland as we have here in Britain. And because I've lived my whole adult life here, I can see how different those
An abortion
are.
culture? What do you mean by that?
Well, it makes me laugh, really, because Leo Varadkar used exactly the same wording as was used here prior to 1967, talking about making abortion safe, legal and rare. And as you introduced the segment, you said, up to 24 weeks in very exceptional circumstances. Yes, it's where there's serious physical or mental health. But it's important to note that we did 180,734 abortions last year in this country on very, very dubious mental health grounds. So whilst I think... most of those
were in the early stages of pregnancy around 3 months, weren't they?
Yes, most of those.
Yeah, which is also when most miscarriages occur quite naturally.
Yes, but that is a natural occurrence. I mean, I think we have the benefit of hindsight. Whatever we did here in 1967, we also didn't have ultrasound imaging. We now know that the baby's heart begins to beat on day 21. We know that brainwaves can be detected by day 40. And we know that an 8-week fetus has everything that will be found in a fully
listen, I've seen the scans of my babies after before and after miscarriages. I am fully aware of that 12 weeks even, that looks like a baby to me. But that's not the point. You talk about having equal rights for the mother and the child. The trouble is, when those are against each other, who do you choose? Because it seems to me that you're saying no. Let me finish, Anne. If we're saying that the moment of conception, a baby has equal rights with fully grown human woman, you're saying effectively, in the event that you're in an IVF clinic and there's a fire and you've only got time to rescue either one mother in there or a jar with a frozen embryo in, you're saying, I'd find it really difficult to choose between the two. Now, I wouldn't find it difficult. No. If they have equal rights, you must surely have a massive moral dilemma there.
No, I think human instinct.
So exactly. So human instinct tells you that the fully grown human woman has greater rights than a speck of cells. But doesn't that tell you something?
No, I would say here again, if we're talking about choice, that's surely the mother's choice. And as a mother, What do you
mean that's the mother? That's the whole point. It is the mother's choice. Isn't that the whole point?
No, that's what I'm saying. So it was the mother's choice. But as a mother, if I was asked, would I rather me or one of my children die? I would rather me die.
But that's exactly Anne, that's exactly the point. And I would do exactly the same for my child, and any parent would. But that's the point. Once they're born, or at least once they're...
No. So
are you saying that you would sacrifice yourself for an embryo? Because I wouldn't.
Well, I did.
I think
loved
that's
my
insane,
children.
to be honest with you.
No, well, I loved my children from the moment I was born, and ask any pregnant woman, particularly in the later stage, any stage of pregnancy, she is, really, really distraught when she loses her baby.
No, well, no, Anne. But of course, and that's why in this country, for instance, you can't have an abortion unless for exceptional circumstances, and there are a tiny number of abortions after 24 weeks, because we recognise the rights of the baby after that point. But the point is, when there is a difference between the rights of the child to life, in this case, and the right, and this has been framed as a human rights issue, the human right of the child to life, and the rights of the mother. Clearly, in our normal day-to-day lives, we put people who've been born or people who are capable of living outside of a mother's womb as having greater rights than a speck of embryo.
But that's already clear in Irish legislation. So 48.3 of the Medical Council Dial of Professional Conduct clearly states that abortion is legally permissible where there's a real and substantial risk to the life of the mother, and that risk does not have to be immediate or inevitable. That's already in there.
But then why are so many women travelling to the UK to get abortions then? I mean, no one thinks abortion's a good thing. It's the least worst thing sometimes, though, isn't it?
No, I agree. And in fact, I work for an organisation that helps and supports women facing crisis pregnancy. My personal opinion is that we let women down if all we can offer them is abortion. And I think that I see that happening here day in, day out.
Wait a minute. Hold on a minute. What if I've been raped and I don't want to be pregnant? I don't want to bear a child that I didn't plan to have, I didn't choose to have, that I don't want to have to remind me every single day of my ordeal of rape. What if I was 16 years old and I've been raped by a family member? So it's incest as well as rape. Do you really think that there isn't any? I mean, the only answer at that point surely is abortion, and yet Ireland prevents women doing that.
Now, whether you like or not, you're making a presumption about women. I happened to be in Ireland 3 or 4 months ago when a group of rape victims who came to Ireland to try to tell their stories, and some of whom had abortions and some of whom had carried on with their pregnancies. And actually, the pro-abortion lobby were so vicious. They tore down all the posters, picketed the thing. They didn't want their story told. Those women were saying, please don't use me as a scapegoat for your argument, because please don't assume that just because I have been a rape victim that I will want to punish my child.
And yet, the vast majority of women in that situation would choose not to have that.
How many women do we know in that situation? I mean, that's the point. We're using a tiny. But
that's the point, isn't it?
On demand.
But that's the point. Is that actually, even in the circumstances when many people who have issues with abortion would say, yes, I would accept abortion in those circumstances. Even in those circumstances, women in Ireland are not able to get an abortion.
And yes, before the Irish people have even gone to the polls, they have chosen to introduce abortion on demand and not abortion in exceptional circumstances. Abortion on demand. And I think that's what.
But you say on demand as if it's like a sort of McDonald's drive-through. I'll have an abortion, please, and a side of fries. It's not like that at all, is it?
Well, actually, here, people don't seem to realise that here it has to be signed off by 2 doctors, and the purpose of that is twofold. One is to ensure that they meet the criteria of the law, but the second one is to ensure that it's in the best interest of the doctors. We saw a case here very, very recently of a paedophile gang where young girls, very young girls, had up to 4 abortions at clinics. I don't understand why those clinics aren't culpable. Why weren't those girls rescued? If you make it too easy, you can actually facilitate things like sex trafficking.
Oh, yes. And we saw that in Rotherham and Rochdale, that girls were coming forward. Absolutely. But I don't see why that's got much to do with this particular issue in terms of women being able to fundamentally, at the end of the day, if they don't want to have a pregnancy, is it not a good thing that they don't have that pregnancy?
Well, I have known many women, personal friends of mine, who got pregnant and were gutted. Particularly a couple of women who got pregnant later in life, absolutely gutted. In my opinion, an unwanted pregnancy very much can lead to a very much wanted child if you get the right help.
Okay, can I ask you also, Anne, do you at the Life Charity, do you spend a lot of time working on advising women on contraception, making free contraception available to women? Because it seems to me people who are anti-abortion really should be spending their time trying to prevent pregnancies rather than anything else.
Well, our thing is actually to help women once they are pregnant. So, there are plenty of organisations.
But wouldn't it make more sense to try and help women not get pregnant in the first place?
Well, we're not a sexual health clinic. We are.
But wouldn't that make more sense? if you want to cut the number of abortions, the main aim, I mean, is not for their women not to get pregnant accidentally.
I certainly think a lot of young people need a lot more education younger in life about.
But is that about contraception, or is it? Are we going back to sort of just say no, keep your legs together, ladies? No, but it's that. But that seems to be the argument, doesn't it?
No, it's quite interesting actually, because there's always an assumption. The same way, I find it very hard to speak about abortion before somebody starts speaking about gay marriage. I think, where's the connection here? Now, I see the connection with contraception. Don't get me wrong. And what I would say is that I definitely think we need more education. Clearly, if somebody's going to be sexually active, then they're less likely to get pregnant if they are using contraception. But what I would say
that's
is
a good thing.
Well, yes, except we've created a culture whereby we say to kids, "Oh, you'll be fine so long as you wear a condom." And in fact, the BPAS themselves are saying that 60% of the women who come to them are coming with failed contraception.
Can I just say, as the daughter of a GP I took 5 friends to the GP during my teenage years who wanted the morning after pill, and all of them told the doctor they'd used a condom, and not one of them had, but they told me personally. It's a load of nonsense.
Yeah, but that's the trouble. So it doesn't
mean the contraception doesn't work. It doesn't work if you don't use it. I just think it just seems to me, Anne, I've always had this argument. If you're really horrified by abortion, what you should be doing is making sure everyone's using contraception. And yet, a lot of the people who are anti-abortion seem to have a bit of an issue with contraception as well.